Chapter 24 of Kidnap on the California Comet by M.G. Leonard and Sam Sedgman. Yorkshire Gold. "Uncle Nat, Zola's been arrested!" Hal cried, bolting through the door of their roomette. "What?" Uncle Nat jumped to his feet. "Where is she?" They wobbled, grabbing onto their chairs as the train lurched out of Grand Junction. Hal pointed out the window as the platform slid away. 2 FBI agents came and they said they had to take her off the train to ask her some questions. I told them she didn't have anything to do with the kidnapping. "You were with her? Is she all right?" "She seemed okay," Hal admitted. "She said she was their #1 suspect and they said she was their #1 witness." "Did they read her rights?" Uncle Nat asked. Hal shook his head. "Then she hasn't been arrested." "She seemed to know them. She kept teasing Agent Ballua." "Malcolm Ballua?" Uncle Nat looked relieved. "He and Zola are old friends." Oh, hang on. Can't see something on the screen there. He sat down. "But why were you with her?" Hal took a deep breath, his fingers nervously intertwining. "I was investigating Marianne's kidnapping." "Ah, yes." Uncle Nat took off his glasses, polishing them with the corner of his jumper as he smiled at Hal. "You and the Morettis have been herring up and down the train like dogs chasing sticks. You seem to have got over your homesickness." "You knew I was homesick?" Hal said in a small voice. "Well, no. I assumed you were. It's only natural. First time so far away from home." He put his glasses back on. "America can be overwhelming." "But you're at home here." "I am now." Uncle Nat leaned forward. "But you should have seen me the first time I came to America." He shook his head. "I hated it. I missed home so much that I cried." "You cried?" Hal was amazed. "I don't hate America. I think it's brilliant, but it's so different from home. I miss my stuff, my room, my family, and Bailey, which is wonderful." "It's wonderful to be homesick." "Yes, because when you get off the plane and see your parents, you'll run to them and hug them to bits." "You don't feel like that when you get home from school, do you?" Hal shook his head. Uncle Nat smiled. "You only feel that way about your family and your home when you've travelled far from them." Hal considered this and felt a bit better about being homesick. "I guess. Homesickness isn't bad," Uncle Nat said. "It's a thing you have to get used to if you're going to travel." Hal smiled, thinking how glad he was to be travelling with his uncle. "Now, you sit there." Uncle Nat stood up and rummaged in his hold-all. "I've got just the thing to help us think." He pulled out a freezer bag. "Tea bags?" "Not just any tea bags. These are Yorkshire Gold." Well, that explains the chapter title, doesn't it? Uncle Nat shook the bag. "I never leave England without them. I'll make us a nice cup of tea and you can tell me about your investigations." After Uncle Nat had left, Hal noticed a small key on the floor. One of the suitcase padlock keys had fallen from his uncle's jacket. He picked it up and put it in his pocket to keep it safe. He got his sketchbook and laid it on the table, ready to tell his Uncle Nat everything. Looking out the window at the churning Colorado River, he waited for his uncle to return. A cliff of orange, oxidized earth rose from the far bank, and he thought he could be on an alien planet. Uncle Nat returned, placing 2 steaming cups of tea on the table. Hal blew on his before he took a sip. The hot drink was comforting. It tastes different to tea back home. "One of the mysteries of travel is that milk tastes different everywhere," said Uncle Nat. "French milk is different from Italian milk, and so on. Nothing ever matches the taste of a cup of tea made at home, but this is close enough to make me happy." They drank their tea in silence, and Hal became aware that Uncle Nat was waiting for him to talk. "I don't know where to start. There's lots I haven't told you. I was so angry with you for not watching Marianne," Hal admitted. "I wanted to solve this without you." "I understand," Uncle Nat said quietly. "Why don't you start at the beginning at Union Station in Chicago?" Hal opened his sketchbook, telling his uncle about his first meeting with Marianne. He described how angry she'd become later when he knocked over her pens, and how she'd disguised herself when she came to apologise. He talked about Ryan's strange behaviour at lunch, how Marianne had pointed the finger at Seymour Hart, saying he was a Zircona spy, and how Hadley had lent Marianne the Houdini hoodie. The story poured out of Hal as he flicked through the pages of the sketchbook. His sketchbook's acting a bit like a story map, isn't it? Helping Hal to retell the story. He hesitated, then confessed he'd worked out the door code to Silver Scout and showed his uncle the drawing of Marianne's messy bedroom. Then he explained how Hadley's hoodie had turned up in coach, on Derrick. "I think Marianne is on this train," Hal said. "I know it doesn't make sense, but neither does the sweet wrapper or that hoodie." Uncle Nat looked stunned. "I don't know what to say." He shook his head. "You say Razor's hard drive is missing. Who do you think took it?" "We thought it must be a spy from the Zircona corporation. But Zola said..." Hal suddenly remembered her watch and pulled it from his pocket. "Zola's watch! She gave it to me before she left the train." "I wonder why." Uncle Nat took it from Hal and examined it. "It's a Zircona smartwatch. She gave it to me and told me to come and tell you everything." Uncle Nat looked over his glasses at Hal. "You went to Zola before coming to me?" Hal felt his cheeks burning. I'm sorry. You were so cross about Seymour's briefcase switch that I was scared to tell you that I'd been in the Silver Scout in case you didn't want to take me travelling again." "I don't think I got cross." Uncle Nat sat back. "I wanted you to understand that there are other ways of doing things, ways that won't get you into trouble. I'm responsible for you, Hal, and if anything happens to you while you're in my care, I'll have to answer to Bev. Your mum can be pretty frightening." "I know," Hal grinned. "Well, let's work out why Zola gave you her watch." Uncle Nat pressed a button on its side and then tapped the illuminated screen. "Here are her messages." He swiped through them, shaking his head. Perhaps her emails." Minutes of silence ticked past as Uncle Nat scanned the screen, and then he looked at Hal. "Bingo! Do you want to know how Zola knew the kidnappers weren't working for Zircona?" Hal nodded. "Because she is. I rather suspect that's why she's been taken in for questioning. This email chain explains that she'll be paid for gathering information. It seems they're concerned Razor might use his solar batteries in self-driving cars." "Zola's working for Zircona?" Hal was shocked. "She's the spy?" "Someone must have tipped off the FBI that Zola was on the Zircona payroll. They think Zola was the person who led Marianne outside into the waiting arms of the kidnappers." "Except she didn't," Uncle Nat said firmly. "It was Marianne who asked Zola to go outside." He lifted the watch. "Her Zircona contact sent her a message this morning expressing horror at the crime, instructing Zola to help in any way she can. Zircona aren't involved." "Then who stole the hard drive?" Hal frowned. "And what's the real motive for the kidnapping?" "The ransom note on its own suggests a financial motive," Uncle Nat said. "But why is the amount so small? Surely August Razor would pay billions." "I don't know," Uncle Nat sighed. "We're running out of time." Hal stood up. "If Marianne is somewhere on this train, then we've got to find her before she loses another tooth and Zola gets the blame. Bits of the puzzle are missing, but we've got a better chance of figuring it out if we're all working together." "Together?" "Yes, come on." Hal grabbed his sketchbook and charged out of the room.